let's dive in, Kevin, because we got a lot to get into. And suffice it to say, you had a dive heard around the world last night too. Speaking of diving,
Okay, I have an explanation for that, by the way. I
yes,
remember
do
that
it.
completely, but okay, yes, the dive. I will say that dive actually looks terrible. But it's because when I first dove in with Cedric on the first thing, when I dove in, my shoulder actually like a little bit popped out a little bit. So when I came back up, I actually like popped it back in. So I was really, really cautious of my shoulder the entire time and holding that thing and falling probably 75 times. Like I don't even know how many times we fell in the water because it was such a abysmal performance, like Jeff mentioned. So when he was like swim out, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a cool dive. And as I was about to jump, I was like, wait, you have a dislocated shoulder. So that's how like it was like a mid dolphin dive, and I was like, I'll just belly flop so that I can just like not hurt my shoulder at all. So that's kind of what happened. But glad that it's a meme.
Well, I want to actually start with that because obviously it's something that's a large part of this up and down day one for you. And I got the chance to watch and report what happened in the moment. Obviously, you've gone on to explain it as well on social media, but talk to me about your POV from what you can remember of how that injury actually ended up happening, and the first things you remember once you actually came to in the midst of the calamity around you.
Yeah. First watching all my preseason interviews, I had so much zest of like playing a long game, like playing a family tree, being iterative with my strategy. Like I just had all this like ideas in my head. First 5 seconds, I'm like, wow, this is David versus Goliath. Like I just was like all my preseason strategy of having David, Kyle, and Joe, it was like out the window because I was like, oh, I'm the strongest person on our tribe. Like this is surprising to me. And then doing the marooning challenge, what happened was I actually like grabbed the rope to try to go under. And what happened is I didn't realize the mud was so deep. I actually thought it was pretty surface level to the sand. So when I held the rope and fell in, I actually like tore my shoulder by holding the rope going in. So that's actually how I tore it. And right when that happened, I mean, thank you so much for writing that article because you actually informed me a lot of stuff that I didn't even remember. But blacking out completely, even asking if we won, like I was like, Kevin, that's so pitiful. Like you obviously lost, and it wasn't even close. But just asking me that just shows you how out of it I was. And I think that tearing my shoulder on day one and then doing the earn your supplies by day one at nighttime, I was completely physically like depleted, and it just got kind of worse and worse as each day got on.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because you mentioned, obviously popping it out a couple times, leading to some mimetic dives in the challenge. I mean, we'll talk about obviously everything that led to your blind side. Do you feel like your physical status contributed to that? Did you feel like this was something that was kind of actively wearing you on the game to the point that it was making you a liability to this tribe?
I mean, one is yeah, yes, like absolutely. So like after I came back from the Earn Your Supplies challenge, the question, I mean, it wasn't shown on air, but there were so many questions of like, hey Kev, like let's not like don't do too much, like don't get water, we'll get water. Don't carry a bamboo. I'm like, wait, hold on. If this is the perception, is this is what I'm like, and I'm just kind of like a dead weight physically, then in challenges I'm not going to be useful. And also their own perception of me being medevaced is very high. So what I had to do was like that night, I just like I didn't sleep at all because of my shoulder. Like it's actually very hard to sleep with a dislocated shoulder in general, but our
Yeah.
shelter was terrible and the sand was like not very good. So what I did was just go out to the beach by myself and just weep, like silently weep by myself and just like ask my I just contemplated over my head like how am I gonna make 26 days? Like even if I was physically like mentally fine, like physically, like my body is deteriorating. The medical team gave me ibuprofen because I was in so much pain, but we had no food on the island. So I just threw it up
Oh.
constantly with water. Because I drank so much water to try to get, some, I don't know, energy or some like fluids. So throwing up all the ibuprofen, Steph mentioned it in her exit interview. Like my shoulder was a lot worse than what they showed, but because like what you said, I didn't want my tribe to think that I was weak or that I was slowly getting medevac. So I just like held it together, like put on a brave face and been like, if you're gonna play Kevin, like you need to act like you're 100% okay. So I feel like I was playing two survivors, one actual game and then my own survivor game of like just being on the island. Like
Well, let's talk about what led to you sitting in front of me today. Because look, there's this tribal council where Say and Mary are going back and forth. I imagine when Say plays Idol, you're like, well, this sucks for Mary, but at least like I'm getting accomplished what I want to. only for it to be you. Give me your reaction to everything that was happening in that moment. Was there anything that flagged in your head throughout that evening that things might turn on you?
Yeah. So just for context, once we did our first tribal and we came back, I was like, okay, this is fine. Like Mary has a vote, I have a vote. Now there's a majority now because with 6 people, a 3-3 tie is very like it's possible. But now with 5 people, there is a majority vote. So I was like, okay, we can do this. We can see what happens in the journey. We can see what happens in the challenge. Like there are options available. But here's like the demise, like the like step by step of my demise. So one, Mary loses her vote. So once she loses her vote, I was like, this is wow, like this is a disaster to like at least our alliance and like our strategies. Like that's already one. Two is we do that challenge and it's disastrous. Like we don't even get close to finishing that immunity challenge. So in my head, like I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be going to tribal at 5. We're probably going to tribal again at 4 because of the fact that they can put in their 4 strongest. Like they can put in 2 puzzles and
Right.
2 puzzle and 2 muscle, and they're strong. Steve and Logie are just physically powerhouses. So to me, like getting out Mary in this round, like that was like the plan. Like getting out Mary. But in my head, I'm like, to me, going out second or third is not that much of a difference for to me. Like I wanted to go far in this game. I wanted to win. So like if Say still had her idol and we were just like moseying on along and everything's kumbaya, she still has her idol. Mary goes home. The next tribal that we go to, like, and I was like, we're going to tribal again. We're not going to last like an immediate challenge. No, we're not going to win. I would be the target for sure, and there would be pretty much no way I could get out of it unless my Shaman Dark hits or something. So in that moment, I was just like, I need to kind of make a move right now while I still have Mary as like a potential like ally, but also like a wild card. Like, what does she have? What does she not? So that maybe Say and Cedric and Justin can, have a deflection and say, do we want an idol? Like Cedric, don't you want an idol? It's not about getting Say out, actually. It's more like, do you want an idol going forward so that we could be protected? So that was my plan. And it almost worked. Like Cedric did tell Say, like, hey, we want to vote out Mary. Like, we still want to vote out Mary. Use your idol. We want to vote out Mary. And like it almost worked. It just I definitely played so hard in that round because I was like, I just don't want to go into tribal and wait to get voted out day 7.
I'm intrigued that you point out, had you sort of stayed the course, you feel like you would have gone out at 4 no matter what. What does that come from? Was it just a sense from you that the other three were so in tight with each other that you would be quite literally the odd man out?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many facts that like state it. One is I go from the Earn Your Supply challenge, I come back and I already got roped into this alliance. Say's like, hey, me, you, Justin, and Cedric are all in alliance. They agreed to the alliance, those 3, and just said, hey, get the 4th Kevin. So like in my mind, I'm not top of that alliance. I'm not even number 2. I'm definitely like just the bottom of that 4. But when I saw Justin and Cedric, they talk, they mingle at nighttime. They're chit chatting. They just have much more of a camaraderie of like personality. They're a lot more calm. They're just methodical. Like, and I'm not. I'm a little bit chaotic, social, energetic. So when I saw them two kind of conversing, talking, I was like, okay, I am not even their number ones either. Like I am just Mary's number one, and that's it. So I for sure was not going to be safe at 4 if Mary goes home, especially if Say has an idol. Those two guys were so like a mindset, like, oh, it's our idol. She has an idol. We can't touch her. So, like, in my opinion, at 4, I don't even know how I'm going to convince Cedric and Justin to not vote for me because there's not many people left. They either have to go for each other or go for the idol. So I just try to make a big move at 5, and that was probably my biggest move, but also downfall.
Well, let's take a step back from 5 to 6, because from our perspective, you called yourself the King of Vula. It seemed like you were right in the middle of kind of these two pairs. How close were you to prospectively flipping the game? Stephanie posited to me last week, like, oh, if I had told Kevin, or if Kevin had told me about Say's idol, we could have forced a 3-3 tie. Were you keen on possibly flipping things against Say that early?
Yeah, so like on that's a great question, and I feel like a lot of people have asked me like, "Oh, why didn't you flip on Say? Like, why didn't you flip it on that vote?" The kicker was that in the first vote, we barely know each other. It is like too hard to even form an alliance that you feel comfortable with. You're just going with whatever is happening, and we just all didn't want to be the first vote. So that was probably like the main reason of like, okay, we don't want a 3-3 split. If there's a chance that I don't have to throw myself out there and risk me going home, like I'm not going to do it. I'm going to make sure that I have a majority going into at least the first tribal. It was actually like it showed me and Justin being really, really close in the first episode, but we weren't that close. And the swing, I actually asked him to, like, I actually asked him if he was willing to put a vote on say and turn it. He was not willing. So like that's really the kicker right there. Is if he was willing and was like, let's do it, I'm like, great. Even if Stephanie plays a shot in the dark, me, Mary, and Justin, it's a 3-2. So we knock out say. Justin was not budging. So once I realized he wasn't budging, I was like, oh, there's no chance.
Talk to me about your relationship with Say, because even at this tribal council, right? Like, you accused her of outing the alliance. She replied that you already did beforehand. Obviously, you were eyeing her as like the most dangerous player besides yourself, you said. So, talk to me a bit about the dynamic that the two of you had over the course of those 5 days.
Yeah. And also like I have nothing personal against anybody. This is all a game. I think like in this game itself, the way I treated it was like we're all playing for $1 million. This is a cutthroat game. I didn't want to just quote unquote sit on my hands and just like not do anything. So I think like when I realized that yeah, I'm an aggressive, like strategic player, try to be a strategic player. And say had power. Say is a very like motivated, determined person who can form alliances. Like you can see, like she found an idol, she found an advantage, or she found an advantage to turn into being an idol. She formed alliances. Like there, to me, I'm like, wow, that's a really, really strong player and a dangerous player. It's dangerous to have a person on that tribe have two people like Justin and Cedric be so loyal to her, where they're like, the idol is ours, and I was like, wow, this is kind of hard to play against when you have so much influence. So I think like that dynamic, I was like, if I get say out, then the influence will come to me. Like only one of us can prevail from this tribe because like if not, then like I'm just gonna be a sitting duck in the next tribal. So me and Say like we worked together, like we were fine. We talked. Sometimes we laughed on the beach. Like nothing was bad, but in my mind, it's just a game. Like a game is a game move, and yeah, like respected each other's game, and that was it.
Last thing I want to ask is, listen, there were a lot of ups and downs in your journey. Let's talk about the big up that you had, arguably the biggest, which is getting these supplies on the first day. Admittedly, I'm not sure how you felt about getting sent on the journey in the first place, if it's like dislocating your shoulder just a few minutes beforehand. But talk to me about that experience, because again, obviously, to your point, not the way you expected between maybe the try makeup and this injury that you get. But you got the ability to metaphorically and perhaps literally fist pump, at the end of it by being sort of the hero and bringing supplies back for your tribe.
Yeah. Okay. For the record, I did not volunteer to do this earn your supply challenge. I think like even my mom was like, "Why did you say yes?" And I was like, "Mother, like what happened was I obviously just hit my shoulder. I blacked out. Then went back to my tribe and was like, honestly, I was like, what's happening? Like, what are we doing? The Sweat versus Savvy. I actually did not hear any of Jeff saying it's an earn your supplies. I thought it was Sweat versus Savvy initially. So when we first came back and you hear Justin saying, Kevin, you should do it. I was like, okay, I don't even know what I'm doing. Also, I was like, am I gonna get medevac now? So I actually had no idea. And when they pitched me to go, my tribe pitched me to go, I was like, wow, you guys really are just like throwing me to the wolves. But I was like, it's another opportunity to show myself. Like maybe I'll win. Like maybe there's a puzzle involved, or maybe there's a math problem. Like something will be there that I can like win. And then when I read it with Kyle, and it said you must do literally manual labor and do like dig and do the tree. I was like, this is going to be so difficult. Actually, in that moment, I just like put my shoulder back in. The doctor's help. I just was pure adrenaline. It was just like go at full speed. So like I think watching that, my dad, I had a little watch party, and my dad like he's so just even keeled, and he's like not very like expressive, but he actually like rose up and like fist pumped when I won. And I think that just I was like, wow, it's worth it. Like this whole experience is worth it just to hopefully make my parents proud of me in this scenario. So yeah, it's been a long journey, ups and downs. Like I think in 5 days, I was like, wow, I feel like I played it 100 days in the island. So yeah.
Yeah, you cram like the journeys of five different Survivor players into one 5 day game. And so, I mean, regardless, to your point, I know this was a huge dream for you, and it turned into a nightmare for a second, but like what you were able to do over the course of these 5 days and the fact that you went out with your head held high even today speaks a lot about, who you are and how you appreciate this experience. And you know how much I adore you and every chance I get to talk with you. I wish it wasn't a couple months from now, but regardless, I relish the time that I got to crack into this game, Kevin. And thank you, as always, for being so open about, yourself and this very big roller coaster of a week in the game.
You're welcome. But also, Mike, thank you so much for just being my advocate. And like when I didn't see the medical during the episode, and then actually like it hurt a little bit. Just it's like such a huge part of my journey, and just to have all that cut and people being like, "You're whining over your shoulder," and that's like I fully just so when I read your article and I was able to share that, like it really meant a lot. So like Mike, like I just want to say like as a human and this is a game and you're a survivor reporter legend, you're everything, but I think just as like a human being, like thank you for advocating for me and like just yeah showing like true compassion and grace because I actually like yeah I cried many months coming back because I couldn't tell anybody about my shoulder and I had to just like hold it all in, but like thank you for like actually like treating me like nicely and like writing about an article about my shoulder and like telling me like that I had resiliency because like I really didn't like believe in myself at all. I was like, you're a freaking loser. Like you lost in everything. You lost in every single challenge. You got voted out second, but I think reading your article made me just like so happy that like someone cared for me. So thank you,
Oh my
Mike.
God. And I am just a face in the crowd of many people who do, Kevin. So thank you. That means the world to me. And I am so happy to know you. And I'm so happy that I got the chance to even just play a little part in your story. And the story continues too. This is
Thanks,
just the
Mike.
beginning, man. So thank you. Thank you, Kevin, seriously,
Thank you.
for everything. I wish you and your family nothing but the best. And thank you so much again, my friend. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.